Coming back to life, I decided to let Eliza Vance have what she wanted. This time around, without me in her way, she could be with the man she truly loved. Then maybe she wouldn't die with a lifetime of regret. In my 50th year, Eliza, at 55, killed herself without any warning. That morning, she'd been her usual self, eating breakfast with me. She'd even complimented the new chicken and noodle soup I'd made, saying it was good, and finished 2 bowls. But when I got back from the grocery store that afternoon, I found her on the bed, no longer breathing. On the nightstand, an empty box of sleeping pills. Eliza had been a doctor for decades, a celebrated surgeon with a wall full of plaques. Getting her hands on a powerful sedative wouldn't have been hard. The dose was massive. There was no chance of bringing her back. Numb with grief and confusion, I handled the arrangements. It was only when I finally entered the study she'd never allowed me into, sorting through her things, that I uncovered the secret she'd hidden for a lifetime. Eliza had been deeply in love with someone else, a man she'd adored in college named Derek Shaw. The morning she died, she had received news of his passing. She chose to end her life as a final tribute to their love. In her drawer was a photo of him. He stood under a canopy of campus trees in a dark gray suit, handsome and sharp. He was striking, with the same scholarly air as Eliza, a quiet intensity one always knew I lacked. It had been the source of my insecurity for decades. The photo was old, but perfectly preserved, a testament to how much she cherished it. Besides the picture, I found a large box of unsent letters. For decades, Eliza had written to Derek, pouring out the longing she could never speak aloud. But for fear of disrupting his life, she had never mailed them. I don't know what possessed me, but I sat there, my hands trembling as I opened them, one by one. I read them all, a masochistic all-night vigil from dusk till dawn. Between the lines of her dense, elegant script, I discovered a completely different Eliza. The woman I knew was cold, sometimes going a whole day without saying more than 2 words to me. I'd always assumed she was just introverted by nature and had gotten used to it over the years. But the woman who wrote these letters was fiery and passionate, her emotions so rich they practically bled through the paper. I never knew she possessed such a powerful need to express herself, to share. She wrote to Derek about every little thing in her life. The nervousness that kept her up all night before her first surgery, her first promotion, the first time she received an award. The time a patient with a bad temper yelled at her. The time she was on a business trip and ate a slice of New York pizza he'd always raved about. The time she was sick with a terrible headache. She never told me any of this. Even when I asked, she'd brush it off, showing no desire to confide in me. I remember when she got her first promotion, I cooked a huge celebratory dinner. She didn't get home until after 10. Ignoring the spread on the table, she just said, "I already celebrated with my colleagues," and went to wash up. Another time, after a patient had berated her, she came home in a foul mood and locked herself in the study. I had no idea what was wrong until I called one of her coworkers. When I asked her why she didn't tell me, she said coldly, "What good would telling you do? How could you help? Do you know anything about how a hospital works?" Already sensitive and insecure, I was left speechless. Among the letters, I found a small, separate bundle, tied neatly with a silk ribbon. Opening it, I saw they were the few letters Derek had written back to her. They had reconnected over a decade ago. She was on a business trip down south when someone organized a college reunion, and they met again. Eliza learned that Derek's life hadn't been easy. He had married the daughter of a wealthy businessman and enjoyed a few prosperous years. But then his wife developed a gambling addiction and lost everything. Hearing his story, Eliza was heartbroken. The very next day, she went to the bank and wired him $10,000. From then on, her letters of longing weren't just confined to the box. Occasionally, she'd actually mail one, and along with it, a money order. For more than 10 years, Eliza had been quietly supporting Derek. 8 years ago, Eliza decided to sell the old starter home we owned. She told me a friend in pharmaceutical research had a promising new project that needed investors. She planned to put the entire sale, nearly $80,000, into it. When I tried to ask for more details, she shot me that withering, contemptuous look I'd come to fear. "Why are you asking? It's not like you'd understand." That shut me up. A year later, I remembered and asked if the project was finished. "Pharma projects take years," she snapped impatiently. "It's not that fast." I never asked again. It was from Derek's letters that I finally learned where the money really went. 8 years ago, Derek's son needed to study abroad, and he called her, crying about how hard things were. Eliza decided to sell the house and wire the entire sum to Derek to pay for his son's education. Derek wrote her a long, grateful letter, his words dripping with regret for what they had lost. In an age of smartphones, they still chose to write letters by hand, a uniquely romantic way to commemorate their past. How poetic. If it had only been the letters showing me she loved someone else, it would have been painful but manageable. After all, her decades of coldness had long since eroded the intense love I once had for her. My feelings had faded into a quiet, familial duty. Love? I hadn't cared about that in years. What truly shattered me was a medical document, a surgical report. Just before our wedding, Eliza had undergone a tubal ligation. After that series of shocks, I was surprisingly calm when Eliza's lawyer arrived with her will. Hearing that she'd left her entire share of our assets to Derek's son, I couldn't even muster a cynical smile. I politely saw the lawyer out and went downstairs to get some groceries. Eliza was dead, but I still had to live. She'd left a good amount to Derek's son, but as her husband of decades, I was entitled to my half. It was enough to see me through my remaining years comfortably. I was only 50. With good health, I had a lot of life left to live. I had to start planning how to spend it. But you never see it coming. As I crossed the street, a car driving on the wrong side lost control and barreled toward me. My last conscious thought was the surreal image of my own body flying through the air. When I woke up again, the face staring back at me from the mirror was 15 years old, boyish and raw. I was stunned. I was reborn. The moment I stepped outside, I ran right into Aunt Carol, Eliza's mom, who was just coming into the yard. "Leo, you all packed? I came to help you carry your things over." It hit me then what time I was in. I cursed myself. Why couldn't I have come back 2 months earlier? Maybe then I could have saved my dad. 2 months ago, my dad was working at the coal mine when he saw a boulder break loose. He shoved the man next to him out of the way. That man lived. My dad was crushed instantly. My mom died in childbirth, so my dad raised me on his own. After he was gone, I had no family left. As the son of their savior, Eliza's parents were incredibly kind to me, constantly bringing me food and clothes. They even promised me their daughter, Eliza, the only college student in our entire town, the pride of Havenwood. At the time, I was more than willing. Eliza was beautiful, poised and graceful, and educated. There wasn't a boy in town who didn't have a crush on her. When she came home from college on break, guys would just loiter around her house, hoping for a glimpse. So when I agreed to the Van Cess proposal, kind-hearted Aunt Carol suggested I move in with them. She told me that as soon as Eliza came home for the summer, we'd get married. In my last life, I did as they arranged. I moved into their house and married Eliza. She didn't crack a smile through the entire ceremony, but I just chalked it up to her being a serious person. Now, getting a second chance, I refused to live that life again. "Aunt Carol," I said, "I've been thinking. I'm not going to move in." "What? I thought we'd already agreed," she said, surprised. "Besides, with the funeral so recent, won't you be scared staying here all by yourself?" I gave a small smile. The man who passed was my father. He loved me more than anyone. Why would I be scared of him? "But, and Aunt Carol," I continued steadily, "let's just forget about the wedding with Eliza. I'm still young. I'm not in a hurry to get married." I took a breath. Besides, Eliza is so brilliant. She's probably got a boyfriend at college already. "She doesn't," Aunt Carol said with certainty. "I wrote to her last month and told her about you too." She wrote back. She didn't refuse, and she didn't say anything about a boyfriend. She'd already told her? That early? I'd never understood it. If Eliza loved Derek, why didn't she refuse to marry me? There were 100 ways to repay a debt of kindness. A woman as smart as her could have surely found a solution that didn't involve sacrificing her happiness. Was her sense of duty more important than the man she loved? Whatever her reasons were, it didn't matter. I wasn't going to marry her. I looked at Aunt Carol, my eyes wide with innocence. "I don't want to get married yet. There's a 5-year age gap between me and Eliza. I've always just thought of her as a big sister." Aunt Carol gently patted my head. "You're right. Leo's still just a boy. It is too early to be talking about marriage." In my last life, Aunt Carol had always been good to me. She and Mr. Vance were honest people who felt they owed my dad a life and wanted to repay me with the best they had to offer. Their daughter was their greatest pride. Marrying me to Eliza was their way of ensuring I'd be taken care of forever. Their intentions were good, but they didn't understand that you can't force a heart. Eliza, burdened by filial piety and her family's debt to mine, had quietly shouldered the responsibility of me. She gave up the boy she loved for my sake. She must have felt so wronged. This time, I wouldn't be the obstacle in her love story. And maybe then, she wouldn't die full of regret. As for me, I lived my own life. "Son, if you won't be my son-in-law, then you could just be my son," Aunt Carol said warmly. "You're only 15, with no one to look after you. From now on, you think of me and your Uncle Rick as your mom and dad." "Okay, thank you, Aunt Carol." So, what are your plans now? I want to study, I said, my gaze firm. In this era, just after the college entrance system had been reformed, almost no one in a rural town like ours pursued higher education. In the surrounding area, Eliza was the only one to make it to a university in recent years. In my last life, influenced by my surroundings and lack of money, I thought like most kids in town. Finishing middle school and knowing how to read was enough. You get to a certain age, marry someone decent, and spend your life working for your family. A simple life, but that's how most people I knew lived. But after decades with Eliza, after witnessing how the world changed, I knew just how important knowledge and a degree were. I could sense Eliza's contempt for my lack of education. She never introduced me to her colleagues or friends. She never brought people home. I was envious of those educated people with respectable careers. I wanted to be like them, polished, successful, able to stand on my own 2 feet. Back then, though, marrying Eliza felt like winning the lottery. She was the woman I loved and the most brilliant person I knew. I was filled with joy and hope. Even as my love for her slowly died in our marriage, I never felt cheated. A simple life was a blessing. You can't have everything. Not until I learned about her regret. I asked Aunt Carol if I could borrow Eliza's old textbooks, and she generously brought over all of her books. I looked them over. The notes and practice tests were a few years old. The best bookstore was in the state capital, so I decided to make a trip to buy the latest materials. Travel wasn't as restricted anymore. I just needed a letter of introduction from the town mayor. Aunt Carol helped me get it sorted out. She also gave me a big package of things to take to Eliza, whose university was in Morgantown. Once on campus, I asked for directions and made my way to her dorm. From a distance, I saw a crowd gathered. As I got closer, I saw the 2 people at the center of it all. It was Eliza and Derek Shaw. The handsome, well-dressed young man was holding a bouquet of flowers, boldly declaring his feelings to the radiant girl in front of him. So, this was how it happened. A man could just openly confess his love. Looking at Derek, I felt nothing but envy. Envy for his confidence, his courage. Eliza Vance, I like you. Will you be my girlfriend? People around them were whispering. Wow, the campus heartthrob from the English department is confessing to the genius from the medical school. They're a perfect match. So even back then, they were seen as the ideal couple. And I was the villain who had torn them apart. No wonder Eliza treated me so coldly in her last life. I'm sorry, Derek. I can't. Eliza's cool, magnetic voice cut through the air, stunning everyone. She had actually refused him. She turned him down, a student gasped. Derek's eyes dimmed in an instant, his voice full of disappointment. Why? Is there something wrong with me? No. Derek, you're wonderful, Eliza said, shaking her head with a sad smile. But I can't be with you because back home. Eliza, I shouted, cutting her off. I understood. In our last life, this is how she had rejected him, by telling him she had a fiancé back home. Derek had walked away, heartbroken. She had returned home to marry me and spent the rest of her life unable to let him go. This time, I refused to be the cause of their tragedy. The 2 of them turned to look at me. Eliza's face was a mixture of shock and panic. She frowned. Leo, what are you doing here? Who's this? Derek asked, staring at me. I smiled at him warmly. Hi, I'm Leo Miller. I'm Eliza's younger brother. Brother? You don't have the same last name. A cousin. Derek's tone was slightly accusatory. I'm her parents' godson, I explained. Our families live next door to each other, so we grew up together. She's like a real sister to me. After I'd insisted on calling off the engagement, Aunt Carol had said she'd adopt me as her godson and even throw a small party to make it official. Hearing my explanation, the hostility in Derek's eyes visibly lessened. You look pretty young. How old are you? He even managed a small smile. 15. I try my best to act like an innocent kid. 5 years younger than us. You're just a kid. This time his smile was genuine. Leo, are you here to... Eliza started. Oh, I came to the city to buy study materials. I interrupted, holding up the package. Aunt Carol asked me to bring this for you. She took it. Study materials? Are you planning to go to college? My voice was loud and clear. I'm going to get into college. With a crowd of curious onlookers still staring, Eliza didn't want to be the center of attention any longer. She dropped the package off in her dorm and quickly led Derek and me away from the crowd. I didn't shut up as we walked. Derek, were you just asking my sister to be your girlfriend? I chattered. She's so lucky to have a handsome guy like you confessing to her. But Eliza, why did you say no? How could you? How could you be so cruel? Eliza just looked at me, momentarily speechless. The reality of his rejection finally sinking in, Derek became persistent. He grabbed Eliza's sleeve. Yeah, why did you turn me down? If you don't give me a clear answer today, I'm not letting this go. Suddenly, A look of realization dawned on his face. This isn't like one of those old stories, is it? You don't have some kind of childhood fiancé back in your hometown, do you? Eliza flinched, her guilt obvious. She glanced at me, hesitating. No way. I answered for her. I'm from the same town. If she had a fiancé, don't you think I'd know? In fact, Aunt Carol asked me to find out if Eliza had a boyfriend here at school. She said Eliza's really shy and never tells her family anything, so she's dying of curiosity. Really? Derek brightened, turning back to her. Then why did you reject me? Am I not good enough for you? Eliza sighed. It's me who's not good enough for you, Derek. You grew up in the city, your parents have stable factory jobs, your family is well off. I'm from a poor, rural family. Your parents would never approve of me. All that matters is that I approve of you. Who cares what they think? Derek was genuinely happy now. So that's why you said no. What do you have to feel insecure about? You get great grades, you're beautiful, and you're your professor's favorite student. Once you graduate, you'll stay in the city and become a doctor. You have a great future ahead of you. That's the future. But right now, Eliza's voice trailed off sadly. I don't care. That's not a good enough excuse. Derek stared at her intently. I'll ask you one more time. I like you, Eliza Vance. Will you be my girlfriend? If you say no again, I'll find a new girlfriend tomorrow. You know there are plenty of girls who like me. I'll just pick the best one and start dating her immediately. Faced with Derek's relentless pressure, Eliza finally gave in. Fine, we could be together. Derek raised an eyebrow. So reluctant? Do you even like me or not? Eliza nodded frantically. I do. Of course I do. Who wouldn't like you? That made Derek laugh. He affectionately put his arm around her, pulling her head onto his shoulder. Leo, my man, you came all this way. It can't have been easy. Let me treat you to a nice meal at the cafeteria. He must have been in a great mood, because he generously bought me the 2 most expensive dishes on the menu. After we ate, Eliza walked me to the bookstore to buy my materials. Derek wanted to come, but he had a class that afternoon. No skipping class, Eliza told him sternly. He had no choice but to head back. In the bookstore, I asked her sincerely, Eliza, you've done this before? Can you help me pick out the most useful review books? After we finished, she walked me to the bus station. On the way, she started to say something several times, but stopped herself. Finally, as I was about to get on the bus, she spoke. Leo, did my parents mention anything to you? About the 2 of us, you know. You mean about getting married? I grinned. Eliza, I'm only 15. I don't want to get married right now. I just want to study. But your dad saved my dad. That's a huge debt. We have to repay it somehow. Then help me with my schoolwork. Help me get into college, too. We can call that repayment. I looked up at her, my eyes full of sincerity. You don't want to marry me because... There's a girl you like? She asked suddenly. Huh. I feigned innocence. Like who? What's like? Why would I like a girl? Eliza looked at me, a sense of relief in her voice. You're right. You're not even grown up yet. What would you know about liking someone? She patted my head like I was a little kid. Go home and study hard. If you have any questions, you can write to me. I will. I stood in the doorway of the bus, turning back to wave at her. Bye, Eliza. I spent the next 6 months at home, teaching myself the middle school curriculum. Aunt Carol had the mayor help me register for the high school entrance exam in the county seat. I passed and got into the best high school in the city. For the next 3 years, I lived in the dorm, squeezing every possible minute out of the day for studying. I even ate with a textbook in my hand. Maybe it was because I always called her sister, but Eliza seemed to accept her new role in my life. She was much warmer to me than she had been in our last life. Medical school was demanding, and she was dating, but she still wrote to me often, asking how I was doing. My letters back were always filled with questions about my studies. Eliza had worked her tail off to become our town's only college student in years, and her professors adored her. She clearly knew a thing or two about studying. I wasn't about to let that resource go to waste. She patiently answered every one of my questions and often mailed me the latest study guides. 3 years later, my SAT scores were brilliant, 5th highest in the entire state. When Eliza found out, she made a special trip home to congratulate me. She suggested I apply to her university. It's a great school, Leo. If you come here, you'll have me, your big sister, to look out for you. I was still a little unnerved by this version of Eliza, so kind and friendly. I politely declined. I haven't really decided which school I want to apply to yet, Eliza. What's there to think about? Just listen to me. Leo will go wherever he wants to go. You stay out of it. Aunt Carol said, pushing her aside. Mom, you don't understand, Eliza persisted, trying to convince me. Oh, so only you understand. Aunt Carol shot her a look. You think you know more than his teachers? Leo, you should ask your guidance counselor for his advice. See where he suggests you apply. Okay, Aunt Carol, I said with a smile. Aunt Carol dragged a reluctant Eliza away, muttering, "Can't you see the boy doesn't want to go to your school? You have no tact at all." His counselor said with scores like that, he can take his pick of any university he wants. I didn't understand why Eliza was so insistent I go to her school. But in this life, I had my own plans. I applied to a prestigious university in Washington, D.C., with a top-tier international relations program. I only told everyone after I had submitted my applications. Aunt Carol and Uncle Rick were bursting with pride. A.D.C. University. That means you'll be working for the government one day, right? Our Leo is really something. Only Eliza was expressionless, looking sullen. During my junior year of college, Eliza and Derek got married. I used the money I'd saved from tutoring to give them a generous wedding gift, along with a card. "Congratulations to my favorite sister and brother-in-law. Wishing you a lifetime of happiness." In my first year of grad school, I started dating. My girlfriend, Chloe, was my advisor's daughter and a graduate student in a different department. I'd met her in my advisor's office when I was dropping off some research. She was there and watched as I methodically debated a point with her father. After that, she started pursuing me relentlessly. At the time, I was completely focused on my studies and turned her down countless times. But she was undeterred. No matter how bluntly I rejected her, she'd just smile. It was hard to resist someone so brilliant and full of life, who showered me with such genuine affection. I was smitten. I asked her when she first started liking me. She said it was love at first sight. I shook my head, not believing her. "It's true," she insisted. "I'm a shallow person. The first time I saw you, I was captivated by how handsome you are. Then, when I saw you debate my dad, I was completely blown away. You were so calm, but confident. So logically, you actually managed to persuade him. It was amazing. I've never met a guy who was so attractive on both the inside and the outside." Dating Chloe was easy. It felt right. Even though we were in different fields, we often shared our academic struggles and triumphs. I was the quiet type, but she was witty and fun, always making me laugh and boosting my spirits. We respected each other, encouraged each other, and planned our future together. In my last life, Eliza was the only woman I'd ever been with. We seemed to have skipped the dating phase entirely, going straight from the wedding to the mundane realities of married life. It wasn't until I was with Chloe that I finally understood what a healthy relationship felt like. Love that was returned, I discovered, was a wonderful, joyful thing. A year after I started my career, Chloe and I got married. On our wedding day, I invited Aunt Carol and Uncle Rick. Out of politeness, I sent an invitation to Eliza and Derek, too. To be honest, I didn't really want them there. Since we lived and worked in different cities, we hadn't seen each other in years. I hoped our relationship would continue to fade until we were practically strangers. Besides, Eliza was newly pregnant. I'd even called her specifically. "Eliza, it's a long trip, and it's not good for your health. It's totally fine if you can't make it. I understand." But on the day of the wedding, they showed up anyway. Eliza's gift was a small box. I accepted it in a rush and didn't have a chance to open it. After the ceremony, I was heading to change into my reception suit. Walking down the hotel corridor, I heard arguing from a nearby stairwell. "If I hadn't seen the receipt in your purse just now, I never would have known. You bought Leo a car? You're so generous. I'm your husband. Why don't you buy me a car?" It was Derek's voice. I froze. I remembered the small box Eliza had handed me that morning. I quickly pulled it from my pocket and opened it. Inside, nestled on a velvet cushion, was a car key. A memory from 2 months prior surfaced. Eliza, who I hadn't spoken to in ages, had suddenly called. She said she'd heard from her mom that I was getting married and wanted to know the date. We chatted politely for a few minutes. She asked what I was up to, and I told her I was taking driving lessons, trying to get my license before the wedding, since I wouldn't have time later. But was she insane? Why would she buy me a car? Even in the future, let alone now, almost no one gave something so extravagant as a gift. From the stairwell, Eliza's voice rose. "Leo is my brother. He spent a lot of money helping my parents over the years. What's wrong with me, as his sister, buying him a car? I don't even have a car yet. What gives you the right to buy him one? You can't even pass your driver's test. What do you need a car for? I don't care. If you don't get that car back, we are through. Why are you being so materialistic?" I slowed my pace and slipped past quietly. I thought about my last life. When Eliza first bought a car, I wanted to get my license too. "You shouldn't even bother," she'd said. "With your middle school education, you'll never pass the written test. Don't waste your time." A few simple words from her had extinguished the small spark of ambition I'd managed to ignite. I just didn't understand Eliza. She always seemed to be harshest with the people closest to her, her husbands. In our last life, she gave me the cold shoulder for decades while showering a man thousands of miles away with concern. She never bought me a single piece of clothing, but when Derek mentioned in a letter that the winter was especially cold, she went out of her way to buy him a down coat and mail it to him. This life, she married the man she supposedly loved, but she didn't seem to treat him much better. She knew he was trying to get his license, yet she put him down, saying he'd never pass. She'd rather buy a car for her nominal brother than for him. I couldn't fathom her logic. After the wedding, as I was seeing them off, I took the opportunity to pull out the small box and press it into Derek's hand. Derek, I just found out what Eliza gave me. It's an incredibly generous gift, and I appreciate the thought, but I absolutely cannot accept this. Before either of them could react, I turned and practically ran away. After the wedding, Chloe and I settled into a warm, peaceful life. Our jobs were demanding, but we always made time for each other, for dinners, dates, and vacations. My career was taking off, so I discussed waiting a couple of years to have kids with Chloe, and she agreed. But our quiet life was shattered by the arrival of one person. I don't know what possessed Eliza, but she applied for a transfer to a hospital in D.C. All of her experience, her connections, her entire professional foundation was back in her old hospital. If she'd stayed, she would have had a brilliant career, just like in her last life. D.C. might have been a bigger pond, but she was starting from scratch. More opportunities, yes, but far more talent to compete with. It would be much harder to stand out. Her parents yelled at her, her husband begged her not to go, and she had a newborn at home, but none of it changed her mind. So, I was completely floored when Eliza showed up at her front door. Not only had she transferred to D.C., but she had, without a word to anyone, rented the house directly across the street from ours. From then on, she was a constant presence in my life. On weekends, when Chloe and I wanted some time to ourselves, she'd knock on the door with a six-pack of beer and takeout, insisting on having dinner with us. When her friends came to visit, she'd invite them out to dinner and always insist we come along. She even tried to give us the fruit and milk she got as holiday bonuses from the hospital. Bound by politeness, we had to put up with it, but it was becoming unbearable. Then one day, Chloe said to me, "We should sell the house and move." My heart leaped. Great minds think alike. But on the surface, I just asked why. I thought you loved this place. This was our first home, a house we had chosen together in a neighborhood we both loved. The community was beautiful, and it was a convenient commute for both of us. The houses here were in high demand. We'd had to pull some strings just to get it. Chloe hesitated for a moment before saying, "I don't think your sister, Eliza, has proper intentions toward you." I was shocked. That's impossible. While we both wanted to move because of the same person, our reasons were different. I just found Eliza annoying and want to get away from her. Chloe was imagining things. How could she possibly have feelings for me? I'd been married to her for decades in another life. I knew for a fact that she looked down on me, that she despised me. Chloe snorted. "I'm a woman. You think I can't tell? You're my husband. The way she looks at you is the exact same way I used to look at you." A chill went down my spine. It couldn't be. Haven't you noticed? The fruit she brings over is always your favorite. Kiwis, mangoes. That stuff is expensive, and she brings it by the case. And the other day, when the motion sensor light in the hallway was broken and you twisted your ankle, I called a handyman the next day, but when I went out, I saw her on a stepladder, checking the wiring herself. Now that she mentioned it, it did seem that way. Goosebumps broke out all over my skin. She absolutely has inappropriate feelings for you. I can't have her hanging around you, Chloe said, her tone firm. "So, we sell the house right away?" I asked. "I've already listed it with a realtor," she said. "That startup I invested in with my friends last year just paid out big. I'm thinking we buy a detached house in a gated community. That way, she can't just move in next door again." Chloe's jaw was set. "You're not mad at me?" I asked tentatively. She wrapped her arms around me. "An attractive man is going to attract attention. That's normal. It's not like you did anything to encourage her. Why would I be mad at you? The only one to blame here is Eliza, for having no morals and no boundaries." We moved as fast as we could. After that, I used every excuse I could think of to avoid seeing Eliza. A few months later, Chloe and I were having dinner at home when the doorbell rang. Chloe was pouring me a drink, so I got up to answer it. When I opened the door, Derek was standing there. "Derek." Before I could finish, a fist flew at my face. I dodged it just in time. Hearing the commotion, Chloe rushed over and pulled me behind her. "Leo, you bastard. Seducing your own sister. Have you no shame?" Derek sobbed, then picked up a cardboard box at his feet and hurled it at me. Chloe stood in front of me, shielding me. "Watch your mouth," she warned him. "Derek, I have never done anything inappropriate with Eliza," I said calmly. Derek collapsed to his knees, a sobbing, wretched mess. "Yeah, right?" he cried, his voice hoarse. "You don't know anything. You're innocent. But your precious sister is divorcing me. I came here to try and win her back, and I found the letters. She's been in love with you. All these years, you were the one she loved. How sick is that? He screamed, his voice cracking. You're completely blameless, but who am I supposed to be angry at? Who else can I blame but you? Following his pointed finger, I saw the cardboard box he'd thrown and the letters scattered all over the floor. A familiar, sickening image flooded my mind. I knelt, my hands shaking as I picked up an envelope. On the front, it read, "For Leo." I opened one. As I unfolded the paper, the words scrawled across it made my entire body tremble. Just like in my last life, the pages were filled with Eliza's scorching, obsessive love. Only this time, the object of her affection wasn't Derek. It was me. How absurd. I had changed the entire course of our lives, but Eliza's pathology remained the same. She was incapable of loving her own husband, doomed to pine for the one she couldn't have. In the letters, she lamented her regrets. She wrote that we were supposed to be engaged. If only she'd never met Derek, she could have finished college quietly and waited for me to grow up. She complained about Derek's mediocrity and materialism, how he'd been so handsome and noble in college, but had become a man with no ambition after marriage, unwilling to work or better himself. In her telling, all Derek did was spend money, shop, and obsess over clothes. He had wasted his college education, she wrote, and had no drive. She said he couldn't understand the things she wanted to talk about, that they no longer had anything in common. But me, she wrote, I was different. I was smart and hardworking, getting into a top university on my own merit, driven in my career. In letter after letter, she described how much she regretted her choices. She wrote over and over how much better life would have been if she had married me. We came from the same place. We had both made it to college. Our minds would have been in sync. We would have had so much to talk about. We were, she lamented, the perfect match, but we had missed our chance. After skimming just a few, I started to laugh, a bitter, hollow sound. In my last life, I'd read these same words in her letters to Derek. Back then, she'd said that she and Derek were the perfect match, but had tragically missed their chance. Derek, what are you doing? Eliza came rushing up, pulling the weeping man up from the floor. Huh, so you could indulge your disgusting secret fantasy. You abandoned your husband and child, left your home, and came all the way here to hover around him, Derek sneered. But he's your brother, and he has a wife. Wake up, Eliza. Shut up. The moment Derek started talking, Eliza had tried frantically to cover his mouth. It was no use. The words were already out. Leo, Eliza looked at me in a panic, wanting to explain, but not knowing how. Her face was flushed with shame. You love him, but you don't have the guts to admit it. Derek's expression turned vicious. So you do know how twisted your feelings are. Well, it's too late. Your precious little brother has already read your disgusting letters. Huh, how are you ever going to face him now? Only then did Eliza notice the letters scattered on the floor. Her face went deathly white. She scrambled to the ground, desperately stuffing them back into the box. Her hand was shaking so badly, she could barely hold them. Finally, she gathered them all, clutched the box to her chest, and ran, stumbling away. The entire time, she never once dared to look at me. After that, I never saw Eliza again. I heard she left D.C., but she didn't go back home. No one knew where she went. A year later, Aunt Carol called me. She said my name, then fell silent for a long time, as if struggling to find the words. Aunt Carol, whatever it is, you can just tell me, I said, my voice as gentle as always. I had no patience for Eliza, but Aunt Carol had never done me any harm. I could separate the two. Leo, can you come see Eliza? She's hanging on by a thread, and she keeps saying your name. Eliza had been in a car accident. She wasn't going to make it. I couldn't refuse Aunt Carol's plea. I booked a flight that night. In the hospital room, Eliza was a mess of tubes and wires. When she saw me, she managed a faint, pained smile. Leo, I'm sorry. I wasted decades of your life. I froze. Eliza had remembered, too. I stood by her bed, looking at her for a long moment, and then I smiled. You know, when I read those letters you wrote to me, I was stunned. How were they any different from the ones you wrote to Derek in our last life? In them, you said how wonderful it would have been if we had gotten married, that you would have had no regrets. But now you know the truth. We were married in our last life. And what was the result? You were still full of regret. You spent your entire life hung up on not being with Derek. And because I married you, I never got past a high school education. This life, without you, I went to college. I have a great career and a happy marriage. Eliza, in our last life, you were the one who held me back. In our first life, after we were married, I had wanted to go to night school to better myself. But then Eliza's family had a crisis. Her father had another stroke of bad luck and drowned while helping a friend with his fishing boat. Her mother was so devastated by the blow that she had a stroke and became paralyzed. I brought her into our home and cared for her meticulously for 6 years, until the day she died. Eliza was busy with her career then. I never let her worry about a single thing at home. This life, because of my interference, her father never went out on that boat. He and Aunt Carol were still alive and healthy. In every way, Eliza's marriage this time around should have been much smoother. Derek's family was better off than mine. He provided a generous dowry. Her parents were healthy and weren't a burden. And still, she'd made a complete mess of her marriage. I used to not understand it, I said. How a person could live in a constant state of regret. Regret in the last life, and regret in this one, too. Derek was your great love, the one you supposedly cherished your whole life. In our last life, you even killed yourself for him. But this time, you had him, and you still weren't happy. Now, I finally get it. It's because you're greedy. You're never satisfied. The grass is always greener, and you never appreciate what's right in front of you. For you, the best thing is always the thing you can't have. Eliza smiled a desolate, tragic smile. She struggled to speak. You're right. I deserve this. Her breath hitched. Someone, like me, doesn't deserve to be happy. This is my karma. Leo, I'm glad that, this time, you didn't choose me. Seeing the color drain from her face, her breathing becoming more labored, I quickly called for a doctor. In the end, Eliza survived, but she would never walk again. She was confined to a wheelchair for life. Derek left her and their child. Her parents took her back to their little house in Havenwood. The elderly couple now had to care for their daughter and raise their grandson. Life was hard. Not long after, Eliza killed herself one night. She left behind a suicide note and a bank card. In the note, she said she couldn't bear to be a burden to her parents and was too ashamed to keep living. The day I got the news, I was silent for a long time, then let out a heavy sigh. With your personality, I wouldn't think you'd be sad for her, Chloe said, curious. I'm not sad for her. I'm sad for her parents, I said. Eliza was always running away. She gets her peace, but she just passed the burden on to them. It's okay, Chloe said, wrapping an arm around me. We can go back and visit them together from now on. You're too good to me. Of course I am. You're my husband. Who else would I be good to? She said, her tone triumphant. Haven't you heard the saying? What saying? A happy spouse makes a happy house. Epilogue, Eliza's perspective. When Derek Shaw confessed his feelings to me, I was stunned for a moment. Then a little smug. I knew people on campus paired us together. The English department heartthrob and the medical school prodigy, a perfect match. But I never expected him to be so bold as to declare it in front of everyone. As for me, did I like him? I suppose I did. He was famously handsome, a swan among geese, as some people said. Plenty of girls had secret crushes on him, but felt they weren't good enough to say anything. So when he confessed to me, my vanity swelled. But that was immediately followed by fear. Like most of the other girls who liked him, I knew, deep down, that I didn't deserve him. His family was well off. The clothes he wore, his leather shoes, they were the envy of every boy from a poor town. I heard the face cream he used cost a fortune. Meanwhile, I survived on a meager school stipend each month. My nicest outfit was a dress I'd had made before starting college. How could someone like me be with someone like him? The insecurity was etched into my bones. So, facing Derek and his expectant eyes, my first instinct was to run. I told myself I couldn't be with him. I couldn't let him see the pathetic, poor side of me. My mouth opened, and a rejection came out. I had a ready-made excuse. A few weeks earlier, my mother had written to tell me I was to marry Leo Miller. His father had saved my father's life, and I had to repay the debt. When I got that letter, I pictured Leo's face. In my memory, he was still a little boy with a round face and bright, dark eyes. Adorable, really. If he were to be my future husband, it didn't seem so bad. I found I had no real objection to it. When Derek asked me why I was rejecting him, I was about to tell him I was engaged back home. But then, Leo appeared. When I heard him deny any relationship between us and actively push me toward Derek, I felt a flicker of annoyance. It wasn't just vanity. I knew most of the boys my age in our town were infatuated with me. Why wasn't Leo? Later, I probed a little, asking if he had a crush on someone. That's when I realized the little brat hadn't even hit puberty in that sense. He didn't understand feelings yet. I was relieved. With my excuse gone, I couldn't resist Derek's passion. We got together, but I was always finding ways to avoid going on dates with him because I had no money. I used studying as a shield. For reasons I couldn't quite explain, I started paying more and more attention to Leo back home. The difficult questions he asked in his letters made me realize the boy was very smart. I liked smart, ambitious people. I became more invested in him, saving what little money I had to buy him study materials, and mail them to him. He was even more brilliant than I'd thought. His college entrance scores were much better than mine had been, and though I knew he could get into a better university, I suggested he apply to mine. I just wanted him near me, where I could see him often. The desire was overwhelming, but he had his own plans. He went to a top university in D.C., a better school than mine. He was like a bird that had finally grown its wings, soaring into a wide-open sky. I knew I couldn't hold him back. After graduation, I started my residency at the hospital, which pleased Derek's parents. I got married. The man I married was the dream guy for so many girls, but I didn't feel particularly happy. Derek's parents doted on him and gave us a lot of money to start our life together. My salary was decent, too. After we were married, he had no interest in getting a job. He said with two parents with stable jobs and a successful wife, he was born to enjoy life, not to work hard and earn a living. But his hobby was spending money. All his time was spent shopping and getting dressed. Sometimes he'd spend over an hour in the morning just trying on clothes. He couldn't cook. I ate all my meals at the hospital cafeteria. I started to see Derek as nothing more than a handsome, useless vase. I couldn't talk to him about my work, and even when I tried to discuss literature, his own major, he was never interested. The desire to talk to him withered away. He wasn't an independent man, nor was he a good husband or father. He was useless. A deep-seated contempt for him began to grow inside me. The truth is, I secretly went to D.C. a few times to see Leo. I just watched him from a distance, never daring to let him see me. I knew my behavior was strange, shameful. When I heard Leo was getting married, I couldn't sleep for days. That brilliant young man, he should have been my husband. If he were my husband, we would have had so much to talk about. We would have had such a good life together. I began to regret not rejecting Derek from the start. If I had just insisted on waiting for Leo to grow up, we might have had a chance. I started to resent Derek, blaming him for ruining what should have been my destiny. My patience with him wore thin. When I found out Leo was getting his driver's license, I made a sudden decision. I would buy him a car. With such an extravagant gift, he would have to remember me, to hold a special place for me in his heart. Derek and I had a child, but Derek was useless at taking care of him. His parents moved in with us to help. Our home became their home, a noisy, chaotic place where they criticized me for working all the time, for not being around, for not caring enough about my own child. I didn't want to go home anymore. I just wanted to escape. That, combined with an unbearable longing for Leo, led me to a crazy decision. I would move to D.C. I left on my own, taking only the box of letters I had written to Leo in my loneliest moments. I was starting over, but being able to see Leo every day made it feel worth it. I told Derek I wanted a divorce. He refused and came to D.C. to confront me. He found my letters. He went to Leo. My sordid, secret feelings were exposed for all to see. I was dying of shame. Unable to face anyone, I left alone. When I woke up after the car crash, I had the memories of my last life. Leo, the man I had obsessed over until he became a demon in my mind, had actually been my husband. How absurd. And I had despised him for being uneducated while lavishing care and attention on the unattainable Derek. Even more ironically, I had ultimately killed myself for Derek. Did I really love Derek that much? Looking back, I think it was more about regret and pride. When I first rejected his proposal and decided to marry Leo, I didn't agonize over it. It was only when I heard Derek had married a rich man's daughter that a bitterness began to fester. That feeling intensified after we ran into each other once by chance. Seeing him dressed so elegantly, I couldn't help but think of the perpetually plain, unassuming Leo at home. In the dead of night, I would think over and over, that handsome man should have been my husband. Why? Why did I have to be engaged to someone else? Why did repaying a debt have to cost me my own happiness? I started to fixate on it. The more I thought, the more resentful I became, and the more I disliked Leo. I knew he loved me, but I met his affection with day after day of cold indifference, as if punishing him could somehow soothe the growing regret in my own heart. Perhaps the thing you can't have is always the most desirable. I had long forgotten what the real Derek was like in college. The man in my head was an idealized version I had created. The more out of reach he was, the more I wanted him. Over time, that resentment and regret magnified, twisting into an obsession that ate away at me every day. In truth, when I first married Leo, I was only a little reluctant. Getting the tubal ligation was just a fit of pique. I thought Leo was beneath me, unworthy of having my children. Our marriage after that was quiet, uneventful, even smooth. My thinking had even started to change. As a doctor, I knew the procedure was reversible. I went to the hospital, thinking I would have it reversed. For Leo's sake, for how pitiful he seemed, I would give him a child. But something had gone wrong. Even after the second surgery, my fertility never returned. Leo and I would never have children. So I poured all my maternal love onto Derek's son, even paying for him to study abroad. When I heard Derek had died, my world went gray. My one chance to fix my lifelong regret was gone. So I decided to follow him. I remember clearly, though, that as I closed my eyes for the last time, I felt a flash of regret. I thought of my husband, Leo. I realized I would miss him. The memories that flashed before my eyes were all of him. Him smiling at me shyly. Him gently making me soup. Him patiently caring for my mother. Him sitting under a lamp, meticulously sewing a button onto my coat. Every moment in that life that I cherished had him in it. But it was too late to be sorry. When I opened my eyes again, I was in a hospital bed after the car crash. The memories of 2 lifetimes swirled in my head, and I finally understood my own heart. I begged my mother to let me see Leo one last time. The moment I saw him, I felt I could finally let go. Leo was right. I was greedy, insatiable. I had ruined 2 lives, and it was all my own fault. This was my karma. I didn't die, but I was paralyzed. Derek left me and our son. Seeing my elderly parents, their hair white overnight, having to care for their worthless daughter and raise their young grandson. I couldn't face them. I ran away again. They would be better off without me, wouldn't they? For the second time, I chose to end my life. A person like me didn't deserve to live in this world.